What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm making this video today because I want to discuss the, Xavien Howard situation, but more specifically, if and when it comes to, a trade scenario, what that would look like. So, first of all, let's try and get some of the bigger picture, contextual things out of the way. One being that, trade rumors with Xavien Howard have been going on for quite some time, prior to this offseason and everything. So that's kind of just been something that's been around for a little while, dating back to the purge of 2019, when they completely, tore the team down. So there's that. That's part of the context. Also, the contract extension that they did give him 2 years ago, which he's played 1 year on because it was a contract extension, so it didn't go into effect until last year. So the first year of that contract extension that he actually played on was the year last year that he balled out. So, but anyway, at the time though, I said that I like the fact that they locked him up, but that contract extension was very front-loaded, and there was definitely ways that they could get out of it and trade him, and it wouldn't be too bad of a trade for other teams. So there would be incentive to do it for other teams. I think at this point, even with some of the things we're going to talk about, I still think that there would be plenty of teams looking for Xavien Howard's services if he should come available. But anyway, so the first thing that we need to, and to fast forward past those bits of, context, we get a little bit more closer to home and to now, to the present, and, we look at it, right? So, obviously, Xavien Howard balled out last year. I mean, he was far and away the best cornerback in the league. He, led the league with 10 interceptions, 20 passes defensed, had a forced fumble, over 50 tackles, was a baller. He was, I say that Byron Jones is half the cornerback that Xavien Howard was, but he was like a fourth of the quarterback that Xavien Howard was, statistically speaking, last year. And he definitely blew all the rest of the corners out of the water. I think he got robbed by only getting third place for Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's silly and stupid based off of, but and it just kind of goes to show some of the bias and whatever that plays into that. But that's not really the topic of this. But point is he balled out last year, and so he wanted to get a new contract because look, there's stuff that's, it's not just right. It's not just that Jalen Ramsey and some of these other corners got, bigger contracts, right? Because a lot of people on the opposite side of this conversation will be like, yeah, but there's always going to be a player like every year that resets the market. Okay, and that's true. And for me, it's not, this is my evaluation. For me, I don't think that it's just because there's other cornerbacks on other teams that are paid higher than Xavien Howard, and they happen to get paid, after he signed his contract or whatever. I think it's a combination of that, plus the fact that Byron Jones is not even half the cornerback that Xavien Howard is, yet gets paid more, and also the way that they structured his previous contract in a way so that way his yearly salary is not actually that high. I think it's 6th in the league, if I'm not mistaken, overall for the next few years, and significantly lower than Byron Jones. So you add all of that in, and then add in the fact that he was clearing away the best cornerback in the league last year, and then add in that he fired his agent, which means he's intending to be aggressive, right? And so look, at the end of the day, I think that Xavien Howard is going to demand top cornerback money, period, right? So top cornerback in the league. But I think a lot of this conversation does revolve around the fact that the Dolphins decided to pay a player that was, first of all, just not worth the contract that they gave him to begin with, but who's clearly a fraction of the player that Xavien Howard is and still makes significantly more. I think that is one of the largest factors in this, if I'm, and a lot of people are talking about an interview that he did back in like January or February, where he would even said some comments along the lines of that, while he understands that they got to have some kind of insurance because, insurance policy because of, his personal injury concerns with his knees, he understands that, but he also feels like, it was a little bit of a slap in the face to pay Byron Jones, a player who's not anywhere near the same caliber of a player, to pay him more money, bring him in, go out of your way to make a big splash in free agency, sign him to a massive ludicrous lucrative contract that helped to reset the market and also helped you to fucking put yourself in cap hell, and make it so that way it's going to be super difficult for you to give Xavien Howard what he wants. Right? So it's the Dolphins' fault that they're in this position to begin with, point blank, bottom line, period. But so I think he's going to ask for, top cornerback money. And I ultimately don't think the Dolphins are going to do it. And so the way that I see this playing out, obviously we know he skipped minicamp, which in and of itself is really not that big of a deal. We have a little over a month, I believe it is, until the start of training camp. If he starts skipping training camp, that's when, the consensus is that that's when it'll start becoming a big deal. However, I have a feeling, and I think that there is a high probability that, this all comes to a head even before training camp begins. In other words, I think that there is a high probability that Xavien Howard and his agent request a trade even before training camp. Because again, they're obviously trying to be aggressive. He's clearly holding out, and I don't think it's just that he's trying to get paid. I think that the fact that Byron Jones is getting paid way more for being a way lower caliber player. I think that has a lot to do with it, and it's a big piece. But also considering the fact that some other cornerbacks got some other contracts that pay them higher than him, and he was clear in a way the best quarterback in the league. That also has something to do with it, because these conversations are nuanced and multifaceted in their factors, and so I think that also plays a big part. And because of all of the factors combined, also he does understand that his he's got limited time in the NFL, and he's still currently in his prime. And so he wants to get as much money as he possibly can, which he absolutely should. Why? And here's the thing. First of all, people will throw out the fact that, the NFL and these teams are super cutthroat in the way that they, will just cut players. And that's absolutely true. But the one factor and the one point that makes this, a definitive conversation and a definitive answer to the conversation is the fact that it's the players who put their bodies on the line. Okay, it's not the coaches, it's not the front offices, none of them assholes. Maybe some of the coaches used to be ex-players, but they're not currently on the field putting their bodies on the line. They've already moved past that, and they're doing something else, right? So, but definitely the front offices are not the people on the field making the plays and, sustaining the injuries, etc., etc. So, and then when you add in just the very parasitic, greedy, capitalistic fucking mentality and business side of things, I mean, the players are 100% in the correct for trying to get as much money out of them as possible. I mean, look at the ways that they literally tried to the numerous ways, both last year and for the future, tried to strip money from the players because of COVID, right? Not only did the salary cap go down and stuff like that or whatever, but they tried to literally hold their contracts in escrow and fucking get them to take, I mean, it was absurd. So no, there's literally no argument on the other side unless you're a greedy sack of shit for, saying that the players are they themselves are greedy or selfish by trying to get everything that they deserve. Anyway, so like I said, I think that ultimately it's going to come to a head, and I think it's going to happen sooner. I do not, at this point especially, I do not expect Xavien Howard to play for the Dolphins. Now, you know, a lot of people are like, well, you know, he's technically under contract. They don't have to get rid of him. Yeah, okay, but he could just retire. He could retire. That'll void the contract, and then he can fucking, you know, maybe there's some things they need to do or whatever, some technical things that need to happen, but him and his agent will get things figured out. You can retire, void the contract, and then unretire and go play for another team. There's that option, right? He can always do that. But, you know, maybe he doesn't care. I mean, maybe he's, you know, he's willing to sit out. We'll see, right? We'll have to wait and see. And there is some possibility, right? The Dolphins could just adamantly refuse. He could even demand a trade. And if he's not willing to lose the money that he would lose from training camp, or especially the money that he would lose during the season, if he's not willing to lose that, then maybe he does come back, and maybe he's disgruntled, but he still plays. I don't see that happening, to be honest with you. And especially because, you know, he feels like over the next few years, he's not even really making all that much, and he feels like he can get that somewhere else. And so I think that he's going to demand top cornerback in the league kind of money. I think the Dolphins are going to deny that. I don't think they're going to, and I don't think they're going to come to an agreement. That is my evaluation of the situation. You add in context, like, you know, the way that this Dolphins organization and Brian Flores are cutthroat. Nobody's safe on the team. They'll get rid of anybody. They trade like nobody's business. All these different factors add in and paint the picture to me that there's nothing going to happen as far as coming to an agreement, and ultimately it will be pushed to the point, whether, you know, it happens in a week or two, or whether it happens at the start of training camp. I do not believe that Xavien Howard will be suiting up for the Dolphins this season, and I believe that he will be trying to force a trade. Whether or not the Dolphins acquiesce, I actually think that they will. And so now getting to that, if it gets to that, right, if it gets to the point where he does demand a trade, you know, well then what is he worth, you know, and what are the Dolphins going to get for him, etc. So now this is a nuanced conversation. So let's start broad and we'll narrow in and add details as we go, right? So on its face, right, Xavien Howard as a player, his skill set, his ability, and the production he's had when he's on the field has been stellar, right? Not only, again, was he the best cornerback last year, 10 interceptions, right? Couple years before that, he had 7 interceptions. The year where he played 12 games, he had 7 interceptions in 12 games. Likely would have had over 10 interceptions that year if he was healthy the entire season, right? And hasn't let up a deep ball touchdown since 2017. And in fact has 7 interceptions on deep ball passes to only 4 receptions by the receivers. So he's a baller. He's a ball hawk. He's a beast. Point blank, bottom line, period. He was also a 2nd round pick. And so he is definitely very much outlived his draft status, right? Adam Gase and Chris Greer got him in the 2nd round when they picked him a few years back now. So he's definitely outlived that. So based off of those factors, he's definitely worth, I would say, probably 2 first-round picks. I mean, right? You add in recent trades that happened. Now, yes, Jalen Ramsey, right? He got 2 first-round picks. It's true that he is younger than Xavien Howard by a couple years, 2 or 3 years, whatever. And he's also got less injury concerns. Those are true. We'll get to those in a minute. But just based off of the other stuff, the production, etc., 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 he's definitely worth 2 first-round picks. Now, I don't think the Dolphins would get that, because then you have to definitely add in some other stuff that teams are going to be, you know, bringing up when it comes to not just the Dolphins organization, but also Xavien Howard's agent, right? And some of those things are, most importantly, I would say, would be probably his injury history, right? That is probably one of the most, one of the largest factors going into it when you project his future availability and performance. His age obviously goes into that. He's 28. So, you know, that's kind of tied into together, as, you know, his injury history and his age kind of, you know, fall into the same category. Then you add in the fact that he's going to want a new contract and be paid like the top cornerback in the league, 20 plus million a year, right? Or somewhere around there. And probably with a lot of guaranteed money. And then finally, he did have some off the field issues, you know, including, or, you know, related to, you know, some domestic issues with his girlfriend, etc., etc. Obviously, he didn't get charged for that, but that is out there, and I have no doubt that other teams would bring that up. So with those things added into the context, right? Because obviously the production and, you know, his skill set and stuff like that, that's not the entire picture. So when you add those other things in, that definitely will drop, you know, the value that they can get for him. Now, me personally, I would take nothing less than a first round and a second round pick. Right? Or something to that equivalent. So like, you know, a first or second round pick in the 2022 draft, or maybe, you know, a first round pick in 2022 and then a first round pick in 2023, right? So if they were going to trade him, I wouldn't trade him. You know, I would pay the man. That's what I would do. But of course, you know, all those other factors, cap space, etc., make that difficult. But so if they were to trade him, I would take nothing less than that. But I do think ultimately he is worth probably at least 2 firsts. Now, what the Dolphins will get for it, it's possible they could get a first and a second round pick, but I have a feeling that they probably won't get that much even. I feel like they will probably only get maybe like a second round pick and a player in return or something. A player that's definitely not anywhere near the caliber that Xavien Howard is, but they'll get somebody to just throw into the fucking secondary as another, you know, body. Or maybe it's, you know, a running back or something like that. Or they don't really care about running backs, so maybe it's another wide receiver. You know, or some obscure offensive lineman that's never done anything and will never do anything, right? So that's what I think is likely to happen. Honestly, if I was to, you know, give a prediction, I would say that the most likely scenario for all of the, or the most likely way that all of this scenario will play out is that we will know sooner rather than later if Xavien Howard's going to request a trade, him and his agent. I think it's going to happen before training camp, because I think that they're going to want to get him into training camp with his new team if he goes to a new team. I think he's going to want to be there. I think he's not going to want to miss out on that money, right? So I think not only is he trying to get a new contract to get more, but I also do think that he wants to avoid getting fined that, right? The $93,000 he got fined for minicamp, that's, you know, pocket change for him. It's going to start getting more expensive in training camp and then obviously in the preseason and season. So I think I think that he does want, and I think the Dolphins do to some degree want to get it settled as well. I just don't think they're going to give him what he wants. So I think it's going to come to head sooner rather than later, before training camp. I think Xavien Howard is going to hold out. I think he's going to demand top cornerback money. I don't think the Dolphins are going to give it to him. And then I think he's going to demand a trade. Having said that, I think that the Dolphins will find a trade partner. I think that there will be someone. I think that they will not only show to be willing, but they will actually do it. And I think, like they said, they will, like I said, they will likely do something like, you know, maybe a second and a fourth round pick, or, you know, a second and a player or something along those lines. They most likely will not get, you know, what he's actually worth. I don't think that they've been very good with their trades really at all. I think that they've pretty much all been disasters to this point. There's a couple of them, like the Benardrick McKinney one, right? You know, that's still up in the air. We have to wait and see what he does this season. But I think overall they've been pretty disastrous in it. So and they've generally gotten fleeced. So I think that's going to happen again. I don't think they're going to get what he's worth, and I think that they will then, you know, very much feel the ramifications of losing Xavien Howard. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. I think that it will come to a trade, and I think that he will not be playing for the Dolphins. I think that sucks. I think that's super shitty in a lot of different ways. I love X. He was a great, draft pick. He's been wonderful for us. I think he's going to be wonderful for at least another couple years or so. And I think it's going to only, further cement into reality what I predict is going to happen this upcoming season. And so, if they lose Xavien Howard, that defense, I can't imagine anybody thinks that defense is going to be anywhere near the same. It's mind-blowing to me, but I guess we will have to wait and see. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Thumbs up.